Welcome back for another edition of Lunch Break Webinar. I'm excited to get in today's information. Some of you might have already seen the information in your email. We're going to be diving more into kids, grandkids, and money. But before we get rolling, I want you to somehow, some way, let me know that you're out there and you're excited that it's Friday. So type a yes or the letter Y. Just give me an exclamation point. Let me know that you're out there and you're pumped that it's Friday. Good. Good. Okay. Um, Again, today's today's lesson is going to be, and when I mean lesson, I mean please engage. Type in your questions that you may have. If you don't have questions while we're in this 30-minute webinar, please email your questions or add them on our Facebook page at Financial Storehouse. But our email is david.schmidt@financialstorehouse.com. And again, we encourage the engagement, asking the questions, providing a community of people that hopefully may be able to answer each other's questions or help encourage each other. But yeah, kids, grandkids, and money. We all either have kids or know someone that may have kids in our family, whether it's a niece or a nephew, or if we don't have that, we hopefully at least a kid out there that we are a part of their lives. But today, it's such an interesting topic because we live in a culture that's going to be marketed to more than any other culture or any other time that anyone has ever been on this earth, which is not a bad thing. It's just we have to recognize that and realize uh, that the kids that are growing up in today's culture have their challenges, just like we do too. But again, we have to acknowledge that and prepare our kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, or just a child that you're a part of their life on, or a part of their life, and get them on the right page. And how to get them on the right page? Let's dive a little bit more into it. Okay, you'll see the verse that I love. A lot of y'all have had a chance to read this verse, but if not, this verse is from Proverbs 22:6 and 7, and King Solomon, which wrote a lot of the Proverbs, was mentioned in the book of, I believe, First Kings from God, that says King Solomon will be the wisest person to walk this earth. So I try to hear and read what King Solomon has to say and take it to heart. But Proverbs 22:6 and 7, for the ones who haven't read it, train up a child the way they should go, and as they grow older, they won't depart from it. And here's the good part. But, oh, by the way, threw that part in there. Oh, by the way, the borrower is slave to the lender. So I don't think it's a coincidence that we see that verse 7 in there tied right next to verse 6. Train up your child. Oh, by the way, the borrower is slave to the lender. So if you've been a part of these previous webinars before, uh, you're 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 well versed on knowing that I strive to promote a debt free life. Uh, and if you aren't debt free, uh, there's steps to go about that we encourage here at Financial Storehouse, called the Storehouse Steps, to get yourself out of that debt free life and to save up for your emergency fund and so forth. But if you haven't been versed on some of those steps, uh, we'll we'll go over more of that later in another webinar possibly. But today we're going to focus just on the training up a child. But again, wow, okay, strong verse, but train how? So we read these great verses, or we hear a great message coming from the pulpit on a Sunday, or we listen to an awesome webinar. Where we get done with the webinar, it's like, wow, they just poured a whole bunch of information like water coming out of a fire hose, and all this stuff sounds great, but now what? So yeah, Proverbs 22:6 and 7 was just only a couple verses, so not a lot of information. But whether it's this information, this webinar, or just in these verses, it sounds great, but now what? So regardless of the age, we got to give, save, and live. So how do we do that? For those of you that aren't familiar, there's a financial snapshot that you received when you registered for this webinar. That spreadsheet, you're going to be able to include your budget. You're going to be able to include your debts. You're going to be able to include your equities, and using those things, you're going to be able to provide boundaries and provide um, accountability in your life or in your household's life to live an intentional life. So again, how do we include our kids in this conversation? Inside of your budget, be creative. Where depending on what your income is, if you only have $5 or $10 a month to allocate for creating learning lessons with your kids, a lot of people call them a lot of people call it allowances, but I like to focus on the term commissions, where if they work for it, they get it. If they don't work for it, they don't get it. Allowance is almost kind of like uh, a welfare or an entitlement, something that we just give them because they feel like they're entitled to it. But again, just those little words, those little statements that we can make around the household to get them to have a learning lesson on how to behave with money. So, for an example, let's go with the younger ones for an example. So if you have an elementary age kid out there, obviously you're not gonna throw a spreadsheet in front of them and pull up your laptop and show them how to they better fill out all their debts and all their equities and all their budget line items. But we're going to do the same concepts, but we're just going to dumb it down or simplify it. So for an elementary age kid, you're gonna teach them the same concepts of giving, saving, and living. So whether it's getting an old clear container or envelopes, regardless of how you want to do it, but get three separate containers or three separate envelopes and color one or draw on one, or however you want to be creative. If you have a crafter in your family like I do, but yeah, give it an envelope or a jar that says give, an envelope or a jar that says save, an envelope and a jar that says live. So that when your elementary age kid takes out the trash or uh, walks the dog, or whatever the things around the household that you wanna label as commissions, that's up to you on what you wanna label as commissions. And then there's some things we'll dive into a little bit later, but then there's some things you're just going to do because, well, flat out they live in your household. And doing those things just because they flat out live in your household, what that shows is sometimes you just need to do things in your house or inside your community where you don't get anything for it. Sometimes it's good just to give your time and your talents towards your household or your community, and from a spiritual angle, hopefully that represents how you're being an ambassador for the kingdom. So again, give, save, and live. So using the example of you're able to, since we're doing math in public, let's say you're able to give your child uh, $10 a week for doing all their commissions. So they did 4 or 5 things around the house: take out the trash, walk the dog, clean up the dog's mess in the backyard. 4 or 5 things that you've listed, and after they've done all those things, they got a total of $10. Okay, very simple. We're going to use and again, use your however you want to break it down in your household. I'm just using a general statement on how to go forth and do this, but use 10% to give. So when Johnny or Sally goes to church next week, or if you're not actively involved in a church and you believe in giving something that you believe in, that dollar, since we're using the example of $10 and we're doing math in public, so bear with me, that dollar Johnny or Sally is able to give their dollar they worked hard for, and now they're able to associate and tie in that hard working, hard earned dollar and the amount that they worked hard for, and that dollar that they're giving is their dollar. So how awesome is that? Where you're able to include those things in their lifestyle at a young age. Where if you're listening to this, we're going to get to the college age kids too. So don't beat yourself up wishing, man, I wish I'd have done this stuff at a younger age. It's never too late, because you may have grandkids in the future. You may have a kid currently going through college that may have just started. So we're going to pour into that in a little bit too. So bear with me. But this is right now geared towards some of y'all listening that have the elementary age kids, or one day you're hoping that you will have an elementary age kid or grandkid. So again, you're tying that emotional and spiritual connection to giving and associating that with work. And just that concept right there is not really populated in today's culture, today's lifestyle that we see a lot of the elementary age kids live by. So that's just giving. Okay, now saving. Find a percentage or find a portion of that $10 where they throw in their savings envelope or jar, and then you got living. Again, find whatever's left over out of those two categories that you've already given to or already allocated to. The remaining amount you put in living. So, question: well, what does an elementary age kid need for living? Most of the food, most of the things are paid for by the parents. I get that, but there's also too those toys or those games or something that elementary age kid is kicking and screaming for whenever he sees that commercial or whenever he goes to his friend's house. So how awesome would it be where again you're connecting that emotional connection of hard work or working around the house, and now take it a step farther, that connection of saving up a little bit of money in that living envelope or in that saving envelope, and then they go to the store and pay for that item that they worked so hard for and that they've wanted for so long. You're installing these things at such a young age. So regardless of the age, we must give, save, and live. All right, before we go into the next age group, I want to talk about a little bit of protection and what I mean by protection. But before moving into this, please submit any questions. Are there any questions or any feedback y'all have that's something on your heart that you want to throw out there? Might not be able to get to all the questions, but reminder: please engage in this conversation. This is just as much for you as anything else. So protection. Joshua 24:15 is for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Okay. Again, a great statement, a great a great verse to live by, especially around your household. But we have to remind ourselves it's not all about money. It's not all about training up a child or training up someone, a whole bunch of little Hitlers running around where all they're doing is talking about money. But we do have to acknowledge the that we're serving the Lord in our household. So that includes the money the money that we make. So the income that you have, you're passing that down to use as commissions to train up your child. And in doing all that, we're using that money, we're using that time, we're using that labor, whether it's for work or whether it's for, regardless of what it is around the house, we're serving the Lord. So money is included in that just as much as anything else. So money magnifies. It exposes your attitude, good or bad. So if your attitude is an attitude of gratitude and you love giving and you're a generous person, well, when you receive money, it's going to show. Or if your attitude's geared towards an attitude of greed or I want it now, or envy, well, when you receive that money, it's going to magnify your attitude of being greedier or wanting more and not being thankful or not having a heart of gratitude. And again, the opposite of thankfulness is greed. So when I mean good or bad, that's kind of the spectrum that we're looking at. You got your heart of gratitude, which is good, and you got your heart of greed, which is bad. So when you receive that money through your paycheck, or in this case today we're talking about children, but it applies to us adults as well. When a child receives that money, it's going to magnify where their heart's at, and hopefully you can catch those things at an age, whether they're in college or elementary school, and try to have conversations about those and try to have learning lessons about those. Ownership, continuously remind children that we don't own anything. Mom, dad doesn't own it. They don't own it. I have a 19-month-old that he's just now starting to love the word mine. And it's just amazing how the flesh is wired to naturally want to rebel or to naturally want it to be all about yourself. We have to, as parents, Shannon and I have to be intentional on making sure we correct that and making sure we have learning lessons on that. The same thing applies with your college age student or your elementary age student or somewhere in between, that we have to continuously remind them that this house, these cars, the savings account, the giving envelope, the savings envelope, the living envelope, all those things. We're just managers. Okay. And what I mean by managers is if 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 you're responsible for managing something, you need to take account of what you're doing with that money. And it involves a lot of other things outside of money, obviously. But again, I want to remind you today we're talking about money, and a lot of the things inside of the lunch break webinar are geared towards handling money. So again, we're just managers of God's money. So he expects us to be faithful with the smaller things so we can be trustworthy with the greater things, so that when we manage that income that we receive, yeah, we work our butts off for that income. I get that. But without him blessing us with the health, or without him blessing us with giving us a lead to get that job, to create that income, we're nothing without him. So we have to remind ourselves as well as our children that everything that we do, we're managing it and stewarding it for God. Okay, so community. Surround your children with adults and other children who are healthy. And what I mean by healthy, you can use that word, and whether physical, spiritual, mental, financial, but it necessarily doesn't have to mean that those people are extremely wealthy and we can't be friends with the poor. Please don't take your thought process down there. What I'm saying is that whether they're just now getting on board with managing their money and trying to live for a debt free household, or they're just now starting to be intentional with managing their money, and you can see those characteristics. Try to get your family, try to get your kids, try to get your grandkids around those type of people. Now, can you have a unanimous friend selection of everyone just living great and having intentional mindsets of managing your money? No, I get that. Don't take this too literal, but try to encourage your kids, your college age kids, your grandkids to be surrounded around families that have those characteristics, because I truly believe that when you put a horse around a whole bunch of stallions, they strive to be a stallion, but you put your horse around a donkey, they tend not to live to the expectations or live to the potential that they have the opportunity to live with. So let's surround ourselves around a whole bunch of stallions. And again, don't take this into we have to ignore, or we have to root out people out of our lives that aren't stallions. If you feel God gives you the minds, gives you the puts on your mind, or puts on your heart to reach out to other people that need to live a certain way, yeah, by all means, go ahead and do it. But what I'm asking you is to kind of self-analyze your kids' friends, your family's friends, on who you're around on a constant basis, and ask yourself: Are they given to you? Are they adding value to your life? Are they sucking all the energy out of you? Okay, so we're gonna get more into the next slide once I can get it here. Here we go. All right, so ownership. Well, we just broke down money magnifies. Now we're going to talk about ownership. Ownership continuously remind children that we don't own anything. I know we just broke down a little bit of those concepts, but let's dive a little bit more into it. Owners have rights. Managers have responsibilities. So us being the managers, we have a responsibility to manage that income for the Lord. Now, does that mean just give all your money away? If that's what God tells you to do, that's a conversation between you and God. But we have to be accountable for how we spend our money, and it also shows us that where your heart is, you'll find your treasure too. So we have to look at our lives as managers, not as owners of our money. So owners worry over their money. Managers don't need to worry because the money isn't theirs to begin with. Now, does this mean you just sit on the sofa and eat Funyuns and say, well, I don't need to worry. I'm just a manager. God's going to give me everything anyways. I don't believe God works like that. I'm not saying I know how God works, but I believe He's expecting us to produce a labor, to plant seeds, to grow a harvest, to pick from the harvest, and to do those labors that magnify and glorify God. So again, managers don't need to worry because the money isn't theirs to begin with. So when you are giving, or when you are saving, have the attitude and have the mindset of you're giving to impact someone to hopefully be a good ambassador for Christ, or you're saving so you can avoid any whenever life does happen, avoid any hardships because you have some money to go get that transmission fixed. And again, whenever you're living, be intentional with that as well, because whenever we're living, we need to use that money to live and glorify Him. And start by teaching start by teaching a small child to share, and increase that sophistication of the discussion as they mature. So again, you're not going to sit down with a 4-year-old and have the same conversation that you're going to sit down with a 24-year-old. Same concept applies to when you have that birds and the bees conversation, or the conversation about the those types of those types of things. The same things apply to the conversation about money. A 4 or 5-year-old, we're just going to keep it something as simple as giving, saving, and living. And as they mature, the discussion the discussion will get a little bit more sophisticated. So, all right, we finished off. Let's go through one more. Let's go through one more slide. We have here the community. We broke down a little bit more what the community means on the earlier slide when we went through all three of them. But I want to point out one more thing. Again, surround your children with adults and other children who are healthy, and that includes yourself too. But encourage your child to be a friend with the son and daughter of a generous, healthy family. And as we mentioned before, don't disown anyone that might not be living up to your standards. If there's a need out there that someone could benefit from you reaching out to them, by all means, yes, being part of their life. But it's a general statement on again analyzing who you and your children are hanging out with, and who they're associated with on a day-to-day basis. So encourage them to be around other stallions, other horses that are living a generous and healthy life, and those characteristics and those values that those people have. And I don't mean just because they're wealthy, because there's a lot of people out there that have a whole bunch of money that don't have great characteristics. Obviously, you'll have the discernment, you'll have the wisdom and understanding of evaluating those characteristics. But if you see someone that's living a generous life, and they're being intentional with their kids and their grandkids on how to behave with money and other things too, try to be surrounded by those people. Okay, so we broke down those different categories around protection. Let's get a little bit more into. We stopped with the elementary age group. Let's get more involved with the middle school and even the high school age group. Again, we just talked about as the kids mature, so will the sophistication of the discussion. So as you have a middle school and high school age group kid, you're going to start including in the conversation, how we're going to fund the car purchase. If your household's able to match what they save up for the car, great. Or if your household wants the kid to save up for the whole car themselves, great. But regardless, let's have that conversation with the middle school age or the high school age kid, because the earlier that they start saving for this, the better. So one area you might break down that they might need to be saving for is a car. But they're still ultimately, whether you're a 99-year-old adult or a 9-year-old, ultimately we're all going to be giving, saving, and living. So at the middle school and high school age group, that example of a car, there's the example of the college. Okay, whether they're in middle school or high school. If you have a situation where you've been saving for the kids' college all along, use that as leverage. Use that as saying, hey, we're expecting you and trusting you to live a lifestyle with good character. So as long as you continue to do those things, we're going to continue to help you out and help fund your college. But you need to start saving for your lifestyle, or for doing those things that you want to do, whether it's having extra savings towards, as they go into college, joining a sorority or joining a fraternity or joining a club, or joining certain extracurricular activities that they want to be a part of. If they're a senior or a junior in high school, they might want to start looking at those things now to start saving for. Another great example is when you're in high school. Friday nights, football season is here, which is a great time of the year. not only because it's football season, but that means the heat and the temperature is going to slowly start dropping and get these bugs out of here. But so as you know, you're a high school age, on Friday nights, there's a lot of fun things that the kids like to do, whether they go to the FCA huddles or they meet their friends at CC's after the high school football game. They have to start allocating money for those things. And again, could you afford to just give them the money? Yeah, you might be able to. But you're missing out on that opportunity to connect that emotional relationship between them working and doing those commissions around the house. So obviously, at this high school age example, they might be able to mow the grass, or they're washing the cars, or they're doing those things. Whereas they do those things and they get their commission, now they're budgeting that money, and in their living envelope, they're using those things to go to CC's after the football games, go play putt golf, or go on that spring break trip that's 6 or 7 months from now. Some of your kids that are senior in high school that have a spring break trip that they might be going on. Now is a great time to start saving up for March. Just like us as parents, we need to try to save up for Christmas in January, or allocate money for Christmas in January. I'm not saying we need to be thinking about Christmas shopping in January, but then again, there's a lot of great deals right after Christmas happens in January. But I think you get what I'm saying. In January, we got to be intentional about how we're saving for Christmas. Same thing applies for a high school age kid. If they're going on a summer trip or a senior trip that's in the summer, and it is in August, school just started. Well, if that trip costs close to $1,000 or $600, well, you do the math. They need to save a certain amount of money before that time comes. And if your commission chart around the house isn't going to be able to fund it, we'll encourage them to get a part-time job. There's a lot of good arguments. Well, my kid's involved in band or sports. They don't have time for jobs. Okay, there's a lot of time that me being a high school basketball coach, I understand there's a lot of demands that we expect out of the kids, but there's a lot of times too that they have free times to go cut neighbors' yards or to go wash neighbors' cars. So it's up to them how bad they want to do those things. So encourage them to go create that money to increase their savings or to increase their giving and to increase their living. And again, with the college age group, a lot of those same principles apply. But now we're starting to get to a mature mindset of, they're on their own. Will mom and dad be helping with certain things? Yeah, if you're able to fund that, great. Just like how whenever they were living in your house, you paid for their food or paid for some of their clothing. If you're still able to do those things and expect them to manage those things. So obviously now that they're not living at your household and they're off at college, you're not cooking that food for them and you're not preparing it for them. But whatever amount that you think you budgeted or you had allocated for them when they lived in the house for food, that monthly amount goes to them, and they're expected to manage that for food or for clothes and those things as well. So as they leave high school and graduate and go into college, the same concepts apply. That yes, they're going to have a lot of responsibilities being a college age student, but studies show that you actually do better academically in college while having a part-time job. Okay, because it shows you a little bit more how necessary it is to have that time management. And we use that word intentional a lot around here. But you're not only being intentional with your finances, but by having that part-time job in college, you're being intentional with your time as well. So another example of a college age student, some of these concepts that you can pour in or apply to your kids even in college. If this is your first time even thinking about allowing your child to be responsible with money, it's not too late. Don't get discouraged. Don't lose hope. Let's start the conversation now. But another great example is if they're in college and they have a car, we need to have the conversation on how they're planning on saving up for the next car, because mom and dad's not going to be there for the next car. There's going to be some heartache, and maybe not over the car conversation, but somewhere else. But let them know that they're now responsible for saving up for these things and how they're going to do these things and what they need to do these things. So if you ever have a need for having a coaching session with your college age kid or high school age kid, Financial Storehouse, we provide that service for an hour-long coaching session. Feel free to email us at david.schmidt@financialstorehouse.com. We'll talk more about that later. in those hour coaching sessions. But I hope today we were able to, in the 30 minutes where we race through a lot of these slides, I hope you were able to get some nuggets of information and apply these to your elementary age kid, your middle school age kid, all the way up to college age kids, or regardless of how old your kid may be. But the importance of training up your child the way they should go, so as they grow older, they won't depart from it. Thank you for your time. Our 30 minutes is up. Please encourage your coworkers, your family members to join us next Friday for the lunch break webinar. It's simply just a community of people that obviously it's free because you're here and you know that you don't have to pay for anything. But we're just trying to promote and encourage a community of people to strive for being more intentional and better behaving with their money. And not that life's all about money, but there's a lot of things that are connected with money. And I want to make sure that we have at least 30 minutes of the week carved out where we can have some encouragement or accountability so you get these nuggets of information and march forward with life. So remember, give, save, and live. We'll see y'all next Friday.